Hey guys, I break down the most jaw-dropping finds from Antiques Roadshow. Only the best, no filler. Plus, I give my take on their current value. What do you think they're worth? Drop your guess in the comments. A chance find in a Tokyo antique shop during the early days of the Korean War turned into a remarkable treasure. The guest shared that her husband, a pilot stationed in the Pacific in 1950, discovered the piece while in Japan. He bought it on installment, paying with 7 cartons of cigarette each time he visited the shop.
Thermoluminescence tests are really important to get for pieces of this type. This is a test that Oxford Authentications does in England.
Years later, in 1997, she brought the horse to the Antiques Roadshow in Atlanta, where appraiser Lark Mason Jr. expressed doubts about its authenticity, but encouraged her to pursue proper verification. Following his advice, she took the piece to Chattanooga, where samples were drilled and sent to England for thermoluminescence testing.
Basically, they take a core sample from the belly and 2 or 3 other places, usually underneath the head of the piece, and then they irradiate those samples with light and calculate when the piece was last fired.
The appraiser explained that such Tang Dynasty horses are rare, especially ones of this size and with the distinctive 3-color glaze. Historically, these ceramic horses were buried with noble owners, reflecting status and prestige. Had she returned with the authentication certificate in 1999, the piece would have been valued at.
We would have told you that the insurance value would be about $100,000.
By 2007, despite a dip in the market, its insurance value remained impressive.
It'd be about $80,000 insurance now, okay?
Wow.
The guest was visibly delighted, proof that sometimes a carton of cigarettes can lead to a priceless legacy. The guest shared that his father had given him a pocket watch when he was in grade school. Originally, the watch belonged to his great-great-grandfather and had been in the family since he first bought it, likely sometime before 1900. The guest recalled using it as his everyday timepiece during school.
I used it as my timepiece in grade school and fell playing football and busted the crystal on it. The crystal was replaced, and after that, it's been in a safe ever since.
However, during a football game, he fell and broke the crystal. It was replaced, and since then, the watch has been kept safely stored away. Looking closely at the watch, the appraiser pointed out that the dial was signed Spalding & Co. While this company didn't manufacture the watch, they were the original retailers. In fact, the watch was made by the prestigious Swiss watchmaker Patek Philippe around the year 1900.
Now, when you go back to the 1900 era, a lot of their more important pieces that were sold were signed simply on the dial by retailers. Spalding, Bailey Banks and Biddle, Tiffany & Co. All very large retailers of Patek Philippe.
Back then, it was common for luxury retailers like Spalding, Tiffany & Co. and Bailey Banks and Biddle to sell Patek Philippe watches under their own names. The appraiser explained that this watch stood out because of its minute repeater, a feature that lets you slide a lever to hear the time chimed to the nearest minute. This was especially useful at night when lighting wasn't available. Additionally, the watch included a rare split-second chronograph. While the standard chronograph functions as a stopwatch, a split-second chronograph allows for the timing of 2 events simultaneously.
These are used so you can independently time, say, the first and second place.
Such as recording the first and second place finishes in a horse race. Given its rarity and features, he estimated the watch could fetch around $20,000 at auction.
For an auction value, I expect you'd probably fetch in the region of around $20,000 for it.
My goodness.
The guest recalled that the painting had likely come from her grandmother, though the details were a bit hazy. It had always been around growing up, and it was especially cherished by her mother, who considered it her favorite piece.
Have you ever had any valuation on it? Anyone tell you what it might be worth?
No. The big joke in the family was that was supposed to educate my kids.
She had never had it appraised, though the running family joke was that it might one day pay for the kids' college. The appraiser identified the artist as Raimundo de Madrazo y Garreta, a Spanish painter active in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Though born in Spain, Madrazo spent much of his career in Paris and New York, where his detailed portraits and genre scenes were popular among high society. The painting in question depicted 2 women whispering over a love letter, possibly connected to a faint, unfinished male figure watching from above, a technique known as pentimento. Madrazo was especially praised for his mastery of fabrics and lace, which was beautifully showcased in the dresses of the women.
If I would put this in an auction, I'd probably put it at $60,000 to $80,000. My colleagues have said that it might even be as much as $70,000 to $90,000.
Despite the painting being mounted on masonite and needing cleaning, the appraiser valued it between $60,000 and $90,000. He noted that while it might not fund an entire college education these days, it could certainly cover a year or two. The guest had kept the jersey tucked away in a box for over 30 years, unaware of its true significance.
My oldest brother coached Little League up in Connecticut about 30 years ago, and one of the kids on his team, his father was the public relations director for Sports Illustrated.
As a token of appreciation for the coaching efforts, the man had gifted the guest's brother an assortment of sports memorabilia, including a Chicago Bears jersey worn by the legendary Gale Sayers. But for years it remained folded away, unseen and unappreciated. The guest's wife had even suggested using it as a cleaning rag, dismissing its importance. This was not just any jersey. It was an authentic game-worn relic from around 1969 or 1970, some of the prime years of Gale Sayers' career. Known as the Kansas Comet, Sayers was one of the most electrifying players in NFL history. His brilliance on the field tragically cut short by injury. Several key details cemented the jersey's authenticity, like the manufacturer's tag, King O'Shea, which was exactly right for the era. The size, 46, matched Sayers' known jersey size, but what made it truly exceptional was the undeniable evidence of its time on the field.
There's a lot of blood, there's a lot of repairs, team repairs. This jersey's been torn apart.
Right.
It's been through war, battles.
Yeah.
Far from diminishing its value, these battle scars only enhanced it. Unlike modern players who wear a fresh jersey each game, Sayers had likely donned this very piece through multiple matchups, each rip and repair a testament to his time in the trenches. The guest had no idea what to expect, but the appraiser's final estimate left him stunned. At auction, the jersey could fetch between
I would estimate at least $20,000 to $30,000, Roger.
Man.
Laughing in shock, he could only express his immense relief that his wife had not turned a piece of NFL history into a household rag.
Oh, wow. Wow.
The guest shared a unique piece of sports history, a 1919 World Championship baseball that had been gifted to him around 38 years ago when he was just 13. It was a farewell present from a family friend who was heading back to Texas.
Viewing area at the house there, and then I went down to Virginia with me for a while, and then back here to Ohio, and just brought him in here to see what we might have to say about him.
The appraiser immediately recognized the significance of the ball. It was signed by 26 members of the 1919 Cincinnati Reds, a powerhouse team that, despite winning the World Series, is often overshadowed by the infamous Black Sox scandal involving their opponents, the Chicago White Sox. The ball bore signatures from legendary players, including Hall of Famer Ed Roosh and the team's manager Pat Moran, along with the owner August Herman. Perhaps most notable was the rare signature of Jake Dorbert, a standout player of the era.
Now, do you want to take a guess as to how many 1919 Cincinnati Reds baseballs there are out there? Or that are known, I should say?
Maybe 20.
When asked to guess how many were still around, the guest guessed 20, only to be stunned when told the real number was likely under 5. Even more jaw-dropping was the estimated auction value.
I would put an auction estimate of between $45,000 and $50,000.
Phew.
The appraiser praised the baseball's excellent condition, with bold signatures and no missing key names, calling it the best he'd seen on the show. Growing up in Pennsylvania, the guest had to find ways to pass the long winters, so she started writing letters to actors and actresses, collecting autographs along the way. But her most incredible autograph came from an unexpected source, her English pen pal, Puddy. Puddy's brother was in a Liverpool band and had connections to the Beatles. She once promised that if she ever met them, she'd try to get an autograph. And one day, she did. What arrived in the mail wasn't just any signed item. It was a Beatles Program covered in signatures. The appraiser, who sees a lot of Beatles memorabilia, took a close look, even checking with other experts.
And I would say 99 out of 100 are never authentic.
Right.
When I looked at this, I looked at it carefully and consulted with a couple of the other appraisers on the show, and we all concurred that these were 100% authentic signatures.
And it wasn't just one set of autographs. There were three. John, Paul, George, and Ringo had all signed the front, the inside, and the back. Paul even signed his first name on one, and George had added a personal touch with to Puddy, George Harrison. The appraiser was stunned, saying this might be the only piece out there signed 3 times by all 4 Beatles. Despite some creases and a bit of tape, the program was still an incredible find. A conservative estimate puts its value at.
But a very conservative estimate at auction would be $15,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
The guest hadn't been in touch with Puddy for years, but after hearing the appraisal, she couldn't help but think about how generous her old pen pal had been. These rings once belonged to Mr. Hoff, a German man who began collecting them between World War I and World War II. Fearing economic collapse and instability under Hitler's regime, Mr. Hoff saw gold as a safeguard.
And as it got closer to World War II, he buried them in his backyard.
He moved to Vegas to be with his daughter and passed away there. She later gave the rings to the guest, urging him to wear them. Most were beautifully detailed European signet rings from the early 20th century, made of 14-karat and 18-karat gold.
It was custom in Europe, more so than in this country, to have your family crest engraved or applied to the top of the ring.
One ring even featured a nearly 1-ounce gold nugget, initially mistaken as natural but revealed to be crafted from scrap gold. The appraiser explained how such jewelry, especially men's rings, was often melted down during gold booms, making surviving collections like this one quite rare. Each ring's retail value is estimated to be good, depending on gold purity and design. Altogether, including the gold nugget, the collection held a retail value of around.
When I add up the whole collection and even toss in your gold nugget, we're looking at $19,000 in retail value.
The guests pledged to honor Mr. Hoff by continuing to care for the rings and sharing their story whenever he wears one. The guests brought in a striking Pueblo pottery canteen that once belonged to their mother-in-law, passed down through generations. According to family law, the piece was gifted to her family by a native woman in the 1870s.
And the Indian who gave it to them said that it was in her family for 75 years. They had a trading post at Isleta Pueblo in New Mexico.
After the Pueblo Revolt in the late 1600s, many Isleta people stayed with the Hopis and later returned with Hopi partners and culture. The appraiser was visibly impressed by the piece, noting it was unlike anything they'd seen before in terms of form and detail. The canteen, shaped like a pig, likely dates from the 1860s to 1880s and was made with Rio Grande's Pueblo clay. The glossy surface was created with a slip glaze, and the deer painted on the sides competed with heart lines pointing to their life force.
Which people like to attribute to the Zuni with these heart line indications in them. But I actually feel that there might have been a Hopi hand involved in this. So it was a collaborative influence.
Traditionally, a corn cob, not a cork, would have served as the stopper. When asked about its value, the guest recalled a friend once estimating it at $20,000. But the appraiser had better news.
An easy auction estimate for this piece would be $25,000 to $35,000. It is quite extraordinary.
Its age, craftsmanship, and cultural significance make it an extraordinary piece of American Southwestern history. About 22 years ago, the guest stumbled upon a snowy landscape painting in a thrift store. The $125 price tag felt steep back then, so she waited a week to think it over.
And then the lady who ran the thrift store was nice enough to hold it for me for another week until my husband got paid.
What really drew her in was the snow, peaceful, glowing, and full of quiet beauty. She did some digging and found the artist's name, Walter Launt Palmer, which made her feel even better about the purchase. Palmer, born in 1854, trained with the Hudson River School and became known for his masterful winter scenes. This particular painting, likely done around 1900, is one of his signature works.
And he was very popular during his day. And he's able to capture the tones of the sunsets, the beautiful light coming through the trees.
Even more remarkable, the painting has been kept under glass, which preserved it beautifully. And then came the twist. What she thought was just a pretty thrift store find turned out to be a treasure. The current estimate, The guest's stunned reaction turned into laughter and disbelief. "I can't wait to tell my husband," she exclaimed.
Some of my colleagues, right now, I put an estimate of $50,000 to $70,000.
Oh, no.
Absolutely.
Oh, my.
Back in 1929, the guest's great-aunt took a cruise to Alaska with her brother, Uncle Harold. While on that trip, she bought a painting that immediately stole her heart, The Northern Lights by Sidney Lawrence.
In her will, she wanted things to go to the schools and to relatives and so forth. I then put everything I could into certain galleries to sell.
But when that beloved painting went to auction, the guest couldn't let it go. She bought it back for $3,200 in 1991. When asked if that felt like a lot of money, she simply said she didn't care. She wanted the painting for sentimental reasons, as it meant a lot to her aunt. Despite calling Lawrence a scoundrel, she couldn't ignore its emotional pull. The appraiser confirmed it was the real deal, a genuine Sidney Lawrence piece, complete with the original 1929 label on the back. He shared a bit of Lawrence's backstory.
Well, he was born in Brooklyn in 1865, went to a military academy, trained in the National Academy of Design, and married in 1889, I believe it was. And they went right off to England, to St. Ives in Cornwall, where he studied with the St. Ives group there.
But in 1903, Lawrence left them behind and moved to Alaska, where he became one of the region's most iconic painters. He may have been a questionable husband and father, but as an artist, his legacy endured, especially in the American North.
I would probably price it about $20,000 to $30,000.
Did you say $20,000 to $30,000?
I said $20,000 to $30,000.
Then I made a very good investment, didn't I?
You did.
You bet I did.
You bet you did.
Today, the Northern Lights would be valued between